the fact that when the vehicles are in gear, or if they're not in the right position and the emergency brake isn't on or something like that, the lift gates won't work. But he's like, he gets probably 3 calls a week. My lift gate's broke. And it's just they forgot to do one of the combinations of things. And that's life. Here's another just a nugget is, you can write it down. It's very profound. It's usually something simple. It's usually something simple. Really, to fix things, anything, generally, it's not. Sometimes our brain go to the hard thing. I think our brain sometimes like to go to and say it's too hard, and then that absolves us from having to work on it, fix it, look at it, right? Our brains love to do that. We love to come up with a solution and that is beyond us, and then we say, we can't. It's somebody else. I need to call somebody. I need to this or that. When really, most everything is simple. You don't know how many times a day we get called with, this is broke, that's broke. I mean, we pulled the truck off the road. It's making a horrible noise when I drive, and it's a muffler clamp that's just rubbing on the muffler, making a horrible rattle. And you know what? If somebody would have got down and looked at it, the first thing I do is look at it. Oh, would you look at that? You haven't seen that one? All right, we're going to pull it up. Oh, my goodness. All right, here we go.
Oh, look at this. What are you wiping the windows? Oh, look at that. That's nice and shiny.
It's a 78.
Yeah, it's looking good. Looks really good.
Yeah, it's got original paint, too.
Yeah.
People who owned this thing before me must have put the thing away in its Long Island, New York garage every day of its life.
Oh, go figure. Look at that. Oh, look at that.
For $700. It's real clean. You can work on it. It's whatever. The things are not packed real
Right,
close.
right.
There's still a lot of room to work. So with that consideration,
Right.
I'll go with that.
You still do it.
Park that 7.
Look at that. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that. When I see a car like this, first thing I do is I say, would you look at that? Oh, would you look at that?
Yeah, well.
Would you look at that?
Yeah, there's a few more blemishes on the car.
Oh my gosh, just look at it.
The car is not perfect.
Just look at it. Just look at it.
Yeah, well.
What the heck is that? Oh, look at this. You got me running all around the car.
Yeah, the only thing.
Oh, would you look at that? Just look at that.
I can't pull it out either. I'd have to drill it.
Would you just look at it?
Yeah, it's sad. It's the only mark.
I mean, just look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, just get a look at that.
A cop did that.
A cop. Oh, where is he? I'd like to look at him. Yeah.
They told me we're not required to post warnings here in New Jersey.
Oh, would you look at that? Listen, I got pulled over in Jersey twice for not wearing a seatbelt in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
In the passenger
Oh,
seat.
really?
And got a $40 ticket.
Yeah,
I
right.
said,
Well,
would
see,
you look at that? Would you look at that? Would you look at it? I was so mad.
Basically, they got to earn their money the old
Yeah. Whenever a cop writes you out a ticket, the first thing you do is you take the ticket and you say, would you look at that?
and the cop did it, and I wasn't there that night.
Yeah. You should have said, look at this, and that would probably got you off if you told him to look at it this way. Yeah.
Went over there first
This,
time
go.
to
Look at
fight
that.
it.
Yeah, you gotta look at it.
And
Yeah.
the cop
Look at this.
wasn't
You're
there.
right, because he had to look at it first.
Didn't show up
Yeah,
the
because he had to
first
look
time.
at it. He had to look at this.
You know what the judge did?
He probably told you to look at it.
Post.
He probably had to look at it and say, look at that.
I figured I was just going to get off.
And then he said, look at it. Right. And he said, look at that.
And I asked the cop, where were you the last time? He said,
The last time you didn't look at this.
my guess is
He probably did that. Oh, would you look at this?
he
Oh, would you
didn't
look at that?
nerve his
Oh,
rider.
look at that. What an idiot. Would you look at this? Oh, look at that.
Look at this. Look at that.
I'd have to drill it out. I've tried getting under here.
Oh, would you look at that? You got under? Yeah, look at that. Look at that.
Get from behind
Look at that.
you can't do.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that.
And if you tell that to the cop,
at that.
they're not going to give you any
Oh, look at
consideration.
that. You gotta look at it this way, okay? You just gotta look at it. That's all you can do anymore.
Yeah, I looked at it. It's right, and I see, you know.
It just the guy's got a whole he's got like a whole, but listen, I'm just telling you, in life, right? In life, with our issues, you got to look at it. You got to take a good most of us are too afraid to look at it. We are, you know, because then what? Then if we see something, it becomes our responsibility. So, you know, we don't want to look at it. Just take a good look at it. That's going to be my counseling thing. Well, would you look at that? Pastor, I have a problem. Well, have you looked at it? And then I'm going to take you by the hand, and we're going to go over and we're going to look at it. Look at that. The clamp broke. The transmission isn't falling out. It's a muffler clamp. I mean, and that's mostly life. You know, people, I'll tell you. So here's a tip. If your freezer is freezing on your refrigerator, it works, okay? No, a lot of people say my refrigerator's warm, but my freezer is cold. Well, your refrigerator's working. It's something simple, okay? Because there's not separate cold for the freezer and for the refrigerator. The freezer refrigerates the refrigerator. The air just has to travel. So there's one of two problems. Simple. It's your tube that feeds the cold air into the refrigerator probably has ice in it. And it's stopped up. You know, you don't have to go so the first thing you got to do is you got to look at it. And then you go get some boiling water and you dump it in there. You know, take everything out, dump it around the tube, and then you look at it. And then you look at it again, and you put the stuff back in, and it's probably going to work. Or it's your fan, the circulating fan, which is a $5 fix. One bolt, one screw. And people are throwing away perfectly good refrigerators because they have a $5 fan that's broken, or they have ice in their vent tube that feeds the refrigerator. But that's life. I'm telling you, that's life. Most things are simple fixes. And you always look at the simplest thing first. But I'll tell you this, you have to have a mentality. Some people say, you know, Pastor, how do you know all this? Or how do you know, whatever. It's because I've had to live my life as I have to fix this. For one thing, I didn't have the money. I couldn't afford to go get a new refrigerator. I couldn't afford to go just, you got to buy a new battery. I mean, if your car doesn't start and you take it And like, oh, I'm going to take it up to AutoZone or whatever. They're going to put the jumper cables on it while it's still in your car, and they're going to tell you that it's not getting, the battery's dead or the alternator's bad. But you know what? If you didn't clean the terminals, you're going to buy it. You're going to buy a new battery or a new alternator, 50% of the time. If you have a loose connection or dirty corroded terminals, that's what it is. It's not making a good contact. So the alternator's not putting the juice through the corrosion or the battery, and they take a reading from off the terminals. So just, 2 screws, lift it up, clean the terminals, put the thing back on. Now everybody, y'all do like this. All right? Y'all can do that. You ladies, you can do that. Save yourself $120. But see, we say we can't. Our brain loves to say, I don't know nothing about it. I can't. But everybody's capable, if you hear a noise in your car, to look under your car. You might find a bag, a plastic bag that's, got caught on your muffler and is melting, and that's where that smell's coming from. Something's burning. Yeah. But instead, take it to a mechanic. He'll replace something and charge you $300. Really, all he did is go pull the plastic bag off the muffler. It's melting. Understand? He's going to change your brakes, tell you your brakes are burning, whatever. Or a stick. You'll flap, 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 flap. Yeah, you picked up a stick. Look at it. I'm just telling you, that is your life. Your sobriety. A lot of times if you change one thing, you can change a lot. Because you're going to create a domino effect. If you get rid of the one thing sometimes, or change that one thing. This guy shows there's a video on here where, let's see, where a guy takes this little domino, like he's showing the domino effect, right? But he takes this little domino and he has to use a pair of tweezers to put it down. It's so small. Okay? And so he places the first domino with tweezers. And there's only like six dominoes. The last domino, he has to lift with a forklift to get it standing up. It's so big and it's so heavy. So the first one, there's only 6. The first one is little tweezers to get it to stand up. So it's so small. And he pushes that first one, and that one that he had to lift with a forklift falls over. Because the next one is this size and this size and this size, and it's incremental. It's like 6 dominoes that are incrementally bigger, but that first one will push down a regular size, and then the other one will push down, and within six dominoes falling, this huge one just falls. That's our life. In most cases, like the thing that's tripping you up and tripping me up, it's a repetitive thing. It's not 500 random things. It's usually one thing. It's some anger, some hurt, some trauma, some pride. I mean, Jesus would say, there's what is it? There's really only 3 or 4 things, temptations and reactions that are sin that control pretty much everybody's life. Oh, we'll have to look it up. Let's look it up. Does anybody know what they are? Huh? You know what I'm looking for? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. So, I mean, if you want to fix something, mm-hmm. 1 John 2:16. So 1 John is almost like one of the last books in the Bible, right?
First, second, and third.
Huh? What is it?
It's first, second, and third, I believe, and then it's Revelation.
Yeah. All right. So 1 John 2:15. Y'all get your Bibles? The 2:15. 1 John. 1 John, not St. John. 1 John. Go to Revelations and go back. And then go to the front. Yeah. Do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in them. Next verse, 16. For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, comes not from your Father, but from the world. The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And I said this before, that the lust of the eyes speaks of, the lust of the flesh is at the basic part of man is really almost biological in a sense. Our flesh has certain cravings, that if we don't keep under control, we lust, we have desires, sexual desires, we have fleshly appetites. Our flesh wants to feel comfort. Our flesh wants to, eat and all that stuff. And wants to put stuff in its body to make the body feel different. Okay? That's the lust of the flesh. The lust of the eyes is really wanting stuff that you don't have. Okay? Wanting stuff that you don't have. And that doesn't have to necessarily be fleshly. There's people, you can lust after a person and say, I want that person, and you want to have the act of sexual relations, and that would be lust of the flesh. Okay? But it's different. There's people that are in love with the idea of being in a relationship. And that would be kind of the lust of the eyes. Because really the relationship with, that companionship, as far as that's a mental thing, and that's a forward-looking thing, and that's almost wrapped up in fear and anxiety. Oh, I'll never have anybody. I wish I could have someone. And it's a whole life thing. It's not just the act. It's not the biological act of sex. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's people that, like I said, they're more in love with they're not in love with the person, they're in love with the idea of having a person or having a companion. You know, that's why we'll take anybody. It doesn't matter who they are. You know, you're in love with the idea of marriage. You know, you're not in love with the person you're marrying. You're just more in love with the idea. That's something that you want and you've been wanting, right? And it's not necessarily a biological thing. It's this other desire, just lust of the eyes, is just anything that catches your eye, anything that you can imagine, right? You can't you can write this down. You'll never be addicted to anything you haven't tasted. You'll never be addicted to anything you've never tasted. A connection to that is you can't desire something you haven't seen. And teaching you something about how uniquely awesome humans are made, and God made us this way. God made us to be able to imagine. I don't think almost all other life forms in the animal kingdom, with the exception of humans, are reactive. They do things instinctually, and they just do things reactively. They were created a certain way. You know, a dog's going to growl. They migrate. That's all instinctively. It's not like the butterflies. You know those beautiful monarch butterflies that you see. You think, oh, these are Virginia butterflies. No. There's none of those orange and black butterflies that you see. None of them are Virginia. They're not Virginia butterflies. They're all traveling from one place. In fact, if you wanted to say where their home is, almost all of their homes, where they're born and where they come from, is Canada. And they travel, and they're going to one place. They travel down to Mexico. There's a place in Mexico. And all these butterflies, even if you see one out in Kansas, if you see one out in California, if you see one in New York, you understand? They all began their life and live up in Canada. And every year they fly down to this one town, one place in Mexico. And then they fly back to Canada. Now, it's not they're not up in Canada going, dang, it's really getting cold up here. Babe, what do you think? Maybe we should go to Mexico? You want to go to Cancun? You know, they're not. They're doing this instinctually. In fact, it's so instinctually, it's in their DNA. They've taken, and they have to figure out how to get across the Great Lakes. butterflies have to stop and land, but if you get over water, so they have to hitch rides on barges and ships and everything like that, and come across the Great Lakes, and then continue their flight down to Mexico. But they've taken butterflies from that take this route, because everybody. So imagine that, right? Up here is Canada, and for you guys, over here is. Over here is New York, right? Over here's New York, over here's California.
You got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can memorize it.
Okay. Over here's New York, over here's Canada. All these butterflies live up here or over here's New York, over here's California. All these butterflies live up here in Canada. And then they come down to this one town in Mexico, okay? And then they mate somewhere there, and then they fly back home. But some of them will die along the way and give birth along the way somewhere in Texas or Kansas or wherever on their way back up. And you know what? You know where their offspring go? They take the exact same path and go to the exact same birthing spot, home spot in Canada where their parent did. Pretty incredible, right? And there'll be a caterpillar, and the caterpillar will walk around Virginia for a while, cocoon himself, and then take the flight back up to Canada, and it'll start all over again with the next generation. But, so, which side is this side? Which side is New York and which side is California?
That side's New York.
New York. New York. All right. New York. It's the opposite. New York. New York. They've taken butterflies from New York, right? That take this path down to the town in Mexico. They've taken butterflies from here, driven them, transported them all the way over to California, okay, and dropped them off. It doesn't mess up the butterfly. He still goes down to his same spot in Mexico. And you know what path he goes now? He's not a California butterfly just because he, started over here. He's going to go right back up to the same spot in Canada. Do you understand? So the animals are very instinctual, okay? A dolphin's not out there swimming, a squirrel, a dog's not like, man, walking past, some people dress their dog up with a sweater or something like that, and they're not like out on the street like, man, that's a really nice sweater. I wish my guy would give me a sweater. And then it just messes them up for a month, just wishing for a sweater. It's like, what's wrong with Fido? He happened to be out on the street and saw another dog in a sweater, and now he's just depressed for the next 3 months because his owner won't put a sweater on him when he goes outside. They're not thinking like that, right? We are the only, he's not like laying around like, man, let me imagine what life would be if I had multiple sweaters, I could really get that poodle that I've been really eyeing if I only looked better when I went out. Imagine that. They're not imagining, right? We're the only animal that imagines. And how do we do it? We see something that catches our eye and then we imagine it for ourselves. We imagine it for ourselves. That's the lust of the eyes. But guess what? You can't imagine something you've never seen. You can't get addicted to something you've never tasted. Right? So it's like the stuff out here in the world, it's all out there. And if you sample it or you see it or whatever, and again, this is something God created in humans. The power to imagine something and then achieve what you imagine. To get what you imagine. That's called faith. That's how faith works. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. You can't see it. You know, Fido, when he's imagining walking down the street with his new sweaters, you know, he doesn't have it, but in his mind, he does. That's us. You can have it. Turn to Genesis chapter 6. I'm keeping it kind of simple on you today. We're just using the front and the back of the Bible. Won't have to look into the middle or try to find something hidden in the middle. I'm going to read out of the King James. Verse 1. And when it came to pass, when men and mankind began to multiply on the face of the earth, the daughters were born to them. This is going to open up a can of worms. The sons of God saw that the daughters of men, they were fair, and they took them as wives, and of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he is flesh, yet his days shall be 120. So God, cuts down man from living 900 years. Methuselah lived to be 990 some years. Yet his days shall be numbered to 120. And there were giants on the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came unto the daughters of men and bare children. This is where giants came from. Or I can answer those questions later, but to the point. And God saw the wickedness of man was great on the earth, verse 5. And that, look at here, verse 5, and that every imagination of the thoughts of their hearts were evil continuously. Every imagination of the thoughts of their heart, okay, they were evil continuously. Now listen, that's something that you have. Imagination, the thoughts of your heart. Okay, in this case, it was evil. It was influenced by evil, wickedness, whatever, sin, right? But guess what? As a redeemed, born-again believer of Christ, you still have this power. The imagination, the thoughts of your heart. Okay? It's been redeemed by God. You understand? This is what I said. Jesus didn't come to die on a cross and save you from your sin. Did I just say that? Yes, I just said that out there in Facebook land. Jesus did not come to die on a cross and save you from your sins. He came to restore everything that mankind lost in the Garden of Eden. And they're about to lose something right here. He's came to redeem everything that the enemy corrupted. He came to purify the power and the authority and the dominion of mankind. Now, he had to deal with your sin first, but dealing with your sin was not his objective. The restoration of your power, your authority, and the purification of all things that he created you in his image with the power to imagine. But guess what? It became polluted and it became toxic. Right? And so when Jesus comes in, he removes your sin, but you have to, through understanding all this, begin to walk in a purity that if you walk in this power that he purchased for you and he redeemed for you, then you can actually have all of this power, the power that Adam and Eve had in their purity of mankind. You can have that back. You understand? Everything generationally, everything has just gotten dumbed down, weaker. Why? Because it's been diluted by sin. Sin dilutes your purpose. Sin dilutes your power. Sin dilutes everything in your life. It makes it weaker, less. Right? So it's not just about, save you from your sin, your past mistakes. No, there's a reason why he deals with the sin. And the ultimate objective of God is to restore you back to your powerful image person made in the image of God. And it's not the person that you see in the mirror. You're still, when you look in the mirror, you're still looking at the person you're looking at as the flesh. You're still measuring everything. I can't. And why? Because you're looking at all the flaws. The flaws came from the pollution of sin. You understand? And Jesus came to deal with the pollution of sin, but the effects of sin are it robs you of your power. It robs you of a pure and righteous imagination. It robs you of your being able to confess the truth and speak into existence things that are not. Do you understand? By faith, you can say to this mountain, be thou removed and be cast into the sea. By faith, you can say, you can cast out devils by faith. But what is that? You have to see it, you have to imagine it first, and then your tongue has to be purified, and now you're using your tongue to speak things into existence. Guess what that sounds like? That sounds like a person made in the image of God, right? Who spoke the stars into existence, who breathed the breath of life. Out of his mouth came the breath of life into mankind, and man became a living soul. Do you know that you were created in the image of God, and God wants you to breathe life into things? He wants you to speak life into things. He wants you to speak just like he spoke to the darkness and there came light and stars and suns and moons and everything like that. He wants you and I to be able to walk into a dark place, and out of our mouth we speak, and now light enters the room. He wants us to speak light and life to injustice and say, no, it's not happening here. Or like Paul said, he said with his mouth, follow me as I follow Christ. and be able to have that power to speak it out and say, follow me, watch what I do what I do, say what I say, right? So that's how we were created. Do you understand? We were created with this level of power and authority, and it got corrupted, okay? So let's read on. Verse 6. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I've created from the face of the earth, but man and beast and everything that creeps on the ground, the fowls of the air, for he repented that he had made them. I mean, he was pretty upset that he made something perfect, and within, what would be probably 10 to 20 generations here, that man had become so corrupt. Okay? Where am I at? Maybe it's not. I'm sorry. Now let's jump over to Genesis 11. Genesis chapter 11, verse 6. Let me read it just because we're recording. And the Lord said, behold, the people are one. Okay? And they all have one language. This was after Noah. This was after he looked at man, right? And they had become corrupted. But they still had something that was pure. They still had something that was from God. God took Adam and Eve. He part of their punishment was he moved them out of the Garden of Eden, right? And so they no longer had access to the Garden of Eden. They had become corrupt through 10, 20 generations on the earth, and so all of man was living far less than how God created them. Do you understand that? Like they were living way beneath their power and the perfection of which he created. But they still had something that was godlike. They still had something that was original. They had a power that was original, that was given to the original people. Anybody watch Sam and Dean Winchester? Or any of these vampire shows? They talk about the originals, right? The original, the very first, the most powerful one are the very first ones, the original. And something that's original has something, when you can go back to how it was originally, it's in its purest form. And some of you know about that. You carry scales and things get chopped up. Things get chopped up and they're not in their original form. Stuff gets added to them. Stuff gets diluted. We dilute it down. That's where, we trick people and we make our profit on our trick. Because it's not original. It's not full strength, right? So mankind here is not at its full strength. It's polluted, it's diluted, but there's something that remains that still is giving man this godlike power. And this godlike power is too great for evil, wicked, corrupted man to have. All right? So God's going to make an observation here again. We read his first observation, and he, spoke to Noah and had the flood, but here we are back again. Man is corrupt again, Genesis chapter 11, all right? Verse, I'll go back one more verse and we'll... So the Lord came down to see the tower which the sons of man had built. Man had clustered together in New York City and said, we're going to build this tower to the sky. It's going to go up to God and everything. Might have been talking about the pyramids here. Because they're saying that there's not that this tower necessarily reached all the way up into the heavens, but they're discovering that down in the middle of these pyramids, there's like rooms that are almost like they created mirrors and things like that, where when the sunlight came around at certain points of galaxies and meteors and stuff like that, that the light would penetrate down into these rooms and it would refract and then go back up into the heavens. And they're like, they're discovering these like abilities that early man should not have been able to have. Like how did the stones that are at Stonehenge get there? Because they're not, those stones that are at Stonehenge are not from that land. They're from like 200-300 miles away. So how does early man, not prehistoric man, but how does man get these stones all the way, So they're discovering this stuff. But God came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of man built. All right? God's going to make another observation about his creation. Verse 6. And the Lord said, behold, the people are one, and they have all one language. This gets into my teaching on tongues. Why tongues? Let me ask you, what language does God speak? Somebody would say he speaks all the languages. Right? No, he doesn't speak all the languages. He knows all the languages. If I say uno, dos, tres, what did your brain, BJ, what did your brain think? Huh? No. I said uno, dos, tres. I spoke in Spanish. What did your brain think? 1, 2, 3. Your brain thought in English, right? Because that's your native language.